I'd like to see if Lina, if you'd like to introduce Rocky Mountains and just briefly to Tosei, and I'll talk about, I'll just introduce him to all of you. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight, Tosei. So, Rocky Mountains Zen have been practicing for 3 years now. We were started by our friend Aaron Roth, who is now pursuing training in the Plum Village tradition. So we have members, as you can see, from all over Canada and even into Kentucky, and one member in the UK. So the Zoom community has certainly opened the door to our membership, which brings a lot of different perspectives, and we really appreciate that. Um, so yeah, I did remember meeting you at the Dharma Combat. So that was the first kind of Rocky Mountains Zen trip down to California. But I know we're hoping to head down there again in the future, maybe en masse, and have a Canadian invasion. And yeah, we have a newsletter that comes out whenever we have a chance. And I think you've seen our website. We have a website where we post all of our activities and other speakers that we've had present. So that's kind of the long and the short of it. We have a retreat coming up. We have an annual retreat, and it's coming up this year at the last weekend of August and into the 1st of September there. Yeah. Anybody else?
Thank you so much. Yes. Thanks, Lina. And yes, thanks, Tosei. You can hear us all, right?
Yeah.
So just briefly, I'm sure you can talk about, and I thank you again for joining us. So Tosei Christopher Storms is one of the students. And when I say students, I always feel funny, whoever shows up, and then whoever is has sort of nicely merges into the Sangha, in his case was Long Beach Buddhist Church community, which is Japanese American denominational, independent, sorry, non-denominational community. His background includes over 4 years of training at Yokoji Temple, Yokoji Zen Center. Did I miss the mountain? Yes, under the guidance of Tenshin Fletcher Roshi, is one of the Maizumi Roshi student, a major contributor to building of this Yokoji Temple, mountain temple in relation to the city temple of Zen Center of Los Angeles. He had this extensive practice as a lay practitioner and moved on to become a novice monk in 2019. And he's been leading not just this whole Japanese American community, but also with his Dharma brother Seigaku, been leading this Zazen group, where they will have a Saturday Zazen practice coming up this weekend, right? And they were announcing his Dharma talk with Rocky Mountains. So Tosei, thank you very much for joining us. If you could just introduce yourself, background, and your experience, or any insight with us, I'd be deeply appreciated.
I'll do my best. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of new to me. I'm not the Zoom stuff. I'm not. I'm still learning. This is, I think, only the maybe third or fourth time. I kind of didn't really warm up to the Zoom stuff during COVID. I was more I went my own kind of way, I guess. But I'm starting to realize more and more how important the Zoom is and how it has changed the way things are with the Dharma communities. So that part, I did buy this Chromebook thing just for this. So now thank you for giving me the opportunity to actually use it, because normally I actually had to reset the whole thing because I forgot my password, because I thought I wrote it down to not forget, and I forgot it. Yeah, so I made it, but I had to dig around. But let's see. Yeah, so I guess we've been here. I've been living here I live here on the kind of I feel like I live on the grounds of the Long Beach Buddhist Church. I'm pretty much here for anything that they need. So that's been for my practice. It's been a good thing to have something. Uh, we had like a Odon practice that was going on for a while where instead of just having like the Obon dances, they started doing it almost like a workout. So everybody was getting their steps in every Tuesday. So that was a good way to meet everybody outside of just the church, but meeting people from other sanghas as well. Which I thought was a really interesting thing, and learning more just about the cultural center and and just the individuals learning uh, I feel like they're slowly accepting me into this place. And me personally, I don't speak Japanese. That hasn't seemed to been a real barrier. Uh, and then with Seigaku's help, we've been pretty much, yeah, we're every Sunday, and now we have our sitting group that's been going on for a while now. Every Wednesday, uh, we have a zazenkai. We're starting now. It's like the last Saturday of every month now, and that's we don't get a lot of people. Most people get a little scared of of an all day sit, um, even though it's not really an all. It stops kind of around 3 o'clock. A lot of times I have to leave early to go to work, but we do orioki, which I think is one of those things is not everywhere, but some places are kind of weeding that out or changing it into a way that uh, I don't know. I like the form. I like orioki. I think it's really, especially feeding a lot of people. Uh, it's very efficient, and it keeps their training going. And you can feed a lot of people in a short period of time. The dishes aren't really a problem. Uh, so I hope that's something that I don't want it to die. Uh, that's just in my say. But let's see. So how I let's see. When I first started practicing, I guess the first time I sat like a formal, I was reading books and kind of was like a wannabe kind of beatnik. So if I read all the Kerouac stuff and started getting into Gary Snyder, and that's where the kind of Zen stuff. It's kind of where I kind of went into it. I got more curious about it. I read Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, like in high school. Don't know if I really understood it. I mean, the first book I read was like a Ram Dass book, Journey to Awakening. But in the back, it had all the different addresses of places. Uh, so it's like the little high school me would call up random places and just ask them questions and stuff. Uh, I got into Hare Krishna for a little bit. I started doing that before Zen because I don't I don't know why, but but again, what I started liking about or more of what I thought with Zazen was that no one was really telling you anything. Like they taught you how to sit down, and anything you got out of it was your own. I still kind of feel that, but that's kind of what got me into wanting to do it. I started kind of not really a formal practice, but I would go every at Humboldt up in Arcata. There was some college students there that were teaching Zazen there and a Zendo that was affiliated with Joko Beck. So that was my first real kind of um, formal, like where we had the bells and kinhin and everything like that, where it wasn't just me sitting in my house, kind of trying to figure it out. So I really appreciate that. That was kind of like the foundation. And then from there, I did like some backcountry trail work, and that was my kind of my wannabe Gary Snyder stuff. If he wrote a poem called Rip Rap, and it was really nice when I actually built Rip Rap because the way he wrote the poem was how you set the rocks. And to me, that it made a lot more sense when you built it. It was like, whoa, okay, Gary Snyder, hardcore. Um, I've never I've never met him, but I do have a little soft spot for him on that aspect. But then after doing that, when I was doing the trail work, I read that Dwight Goddard's The Buddhist Bible, just because I had, as soon as I got, there was not a lot to do after you're done with your trail work. You kind of have, so I read that. There's the sutras in there were good, and then there was a foreword by Aiken Roshi, and that for me, I was like, huh. And then at that time when I got out of trail work, my my stepdad was in the Navy, so his last kind of time before he retired was on Oahu, and he was practice. He had the Diamond Sangha there, so I went when I was like, I have to go and meet. I've never met a real teacher kind of guy, so I went out, and it was interesting at the Diamond Sangha to even sit with the group. You had to do like an all-day intro class, which I thought was really interesting in the sense that, so by the time you got in with the group, you kind of knew the forms and everything, and you kind of felt connected. But that was also my first Dokusan, and with Aiken, and I hadn't seen all the accoutrement with the whisks and everything, and I get in there, and he's like, and I'm like, oh, this is the guy I've been reading like from and everything, and he was talking, and I was I was doing like groundskeeping at a golf course, so and the thing, we're kind of just like more of an introduction. We weren't doing any like koan practice, but I just remember because he was talking. I'm like, well, I'm just a gardener, and he yelled that he's, you are not just a gardener. And I was just like, "What?" Like, and it really freaked me out because I'd just been reading books and sitting with, I thought, all these nice people, and then he was all mean. But uh, I, yeah, it kind of threw me off a little bit. Um, but I still, yeah, I still think about that a lot. So whatever, that was pretty much my intro. And then at the same time, he told me he was retiring, so he wasn't taking any students. Um, but that was my first intro to. I didn't even really know there was a big difference between Rinzai and Soto, really, like in the style. I just knew that people sat. Uh, that was my first real intro, and then I would sit with their group on my days off when I could, but it wasn't I wasn't a big part of their community. But and then from there I kind of moved back to Long Beach. Always sucks me back. I was up in Hawaii, moved back out here, and kind of fumbled around for a while until a friend of mine told me that there was a priest that was sitting zazen at this. It was a Unitarian church at the time, the Atherton, and it was a friend of mine's dad from high school, some kind of thing. But I started sitting with that group, um, and that was where I kind of I started sitting there as much as I could. I was going. I tried to go almost every day for a while, and he was a student of Matsuoka Roshi, which is also tied in kind of vaguely with the Long Beach Buddhist Church, which I thought over the years, I thought it was kind of fun that I'm coming back. But with sitting, we just called him Bob, right? But sitting with Bob taught me the form. We sat 40-minute periods. There was no it was zazen. We sat zazen. We did the Heart Sutra, and the vows, and that was pretty much it. But we'd get a big. He had the kind of charisma, so we had a lot of people coming. Uh, but a lot of the form we didn't use, except for we used the Makugyo and the bells and things. But he's the one that taught me how to use the Makugyo, and also kind of the encouragement of not moving, like how important the posture is, which I thought was, and I still think is important. Is the posture is I think the most important thing, at least for the zazen part, and that was what he stressed. But he didn't really all the services and everything, and the Chinese always said that wasn't important. That zazen was the most important thing, and I'd been with him for a few years, kind of going, well, everybody who says the form isn't important have gone through have done the form. You know, it's like I don't want to not know what I'm talking about. You can't say like, oh, you don't need zazen. If you've never sat zazen, you don't know what you're talking about. I can't say about service if I've never. How do I know if something's not important? So from there, that's why I started. I would save up money, and I went on like the was that like Zen hunt for a place. I took a long Greyhound ride from Long Beach to Mount Shasta, and I stayed there for, it was like their intro thing, it was like 4 days. I liked it, but it didn't really resonate with me a lot. I liked the form. Uh, at the time, I know they've changed it, but at the time they had a really big, it was like a gold paper mache Buddha, which was kind of, I was just kind of like, what is that? You know, you're all using something, but it also made you realize like, oh, you're not bowing to like the Buddha. There's like, it's definitely was representative of the practice. It wasn't, definitely wasn't like a, if you were at, to me, it kind of made me get like, it was so laughable, the form that it was, you kind of just embodied what you're doing. But I learned that from them, their form, they invited me to stay longer, but um, I I just didn't resonate really. And then after a little bit after that, I moved to Claremont, which is close to Mount Baldy, and I went up there just to see if they had a group. And I think it's Shozan was the one that kicked me out. The guy who does he's the Zen Confidential, because I didn't call or nothing. I just kind of walked around, and I guess they were in the middle of a session, and he kind of like came at me, and then I gashoed to him, and he stopped, and then gashoed and was like, "You can't be here." But uh, they weren't taking at the time. He told me they weren't taking residents. So again, I was like, well, and I sat with their group. They had a sitting group in Claremont that was tied in with Mount Baldy that they had at the Quaker. It was like a Quaker meeting hall. So that was kind of interesting. I'd never been into the Quaker like scene like that, but it was like some, because the Quakers, their building didn't have there was no AC, no heat, or and so in the summertime in Claremont it gets like 110 sometimes. So that's where I first learned how to sit very uncomfortably for a while with them. But then again, I still was like looking for a place to study. I wanted to learn some forms and stuff. Uh, so from there that's where I went to Yokoji, or at the time it was just called Zen Mountain Center, because I was starting to read stuff about Maizumi Roshi. But at the time, this was like 2000. There wasn't a lot written yet, like, or that it was available. Like Appreciate Your Life hadn't really, there wasn't like really copies of his books. So I was going more about like from reading these other like the swans come to the lake and Zen. And I was reading anything that had a Zen or Buddhist thing on it. I would just read it. Um, but then I went up and I took, I did their introduction workshop, and that's where I met Tenshin Roshi. And at the time they were, I know that they've really loosened their schedule, their kind of style now. But when I was there, that at that time there was a guy. Now he lives in New Zealand, but Shinko was there as his head priest, and they kept a really strong schedule, and and I just liked the people. Like where I was meeting them, they were using chainsaws and stuff on the time off, and I'm like, I could do this. It just seemed more. I resonated with it, but so I did that. I did their like little weekend thing, and then I told them I'm gonna come back, and Shinko and stuff were like, yeah, because everybody says that that you're gonna come back. But I had a girlfriend at the time, and I was working at a job, and I wanted to know what like the kind of monastic practice was like. So I wanted to do an ongo and just what their 3 months without anything to see what it was like. So I saved up as much money as I could, and I paid half of my rent while I was gone, and I did the 6 months, and I got a lot out of it. And at that time period, I was one of the last ongos, but the last month of the ongo was a month long session. So I got to do a session for the month. They stopped doing them because practic for practicality reasons, most people can't take a month off of work, and but I got to do that, and then even during that, some Rinzai monks came down from Japan or across from Japan. So I got to sit with the Japanese Rinzai priests as well, and that was interesting. It was the same thing where I got to do Dokusan with the teacher and his and there was a translator. Um, at that time, they kind of given me Mu, so it was fun to get turned down by him. He just no. But it was cool. Like I was like, wow, I'm doing this stuff. This is the stuff I wanted to try. I uh, I even had the Kiyosaku just to try. I wanted to see how a Rinzai, Japanese Rinzai priest hits, and they hit hard, but it wakes you up. And I realized, uh, at least for Kiyosaku wise, there is a reason for it. It might have hurt, but it did relax like the muscles and stuff because you start. I know so that was so that for that 6 months was a very it was more me feeling it out and to see if I wanted to do it, and I hadn't really in the back of my mind I always wanted to do it. So again, like I haven't gone to college for this or anything. I'm kind of a very kind of I don't know self-taught, I guess, in the sense of uh, that. But so this yeah, 6 months was like that was my main kind of I like this. I can and the form was very it was they still did the and I was telling Yoke that we'd run around in the valley with the bell and everything. There was the whole stuff that they don't do now. It's a little different. I know they don't have as many people. When I was living there, we had at that time period there was a lot of residents coming in and out, and intention was he's getting a little older now, but back then he was kind of scary, uh, which for I don't know. But and then doing the dokusans and stuff were a lot more intense, and but I started getting more comfortable with that and just and learning the forms. Uh, but then I did the 6 months, and then I told Shinko again that I'm going to come back, and he said, yeah, because everybody says that. Tension was like, yeah, you can if you want, but it's nice meeting you, kind of thing. So I left, uh, came back. I didn't have a girlfriend anymore, uh, which makes I was gone. Uh, but yeah, I did that. I was couch surfed for a bit, got a job at a bakery thing, started doing that, got an apartment, uh, and it was kind of like, this is all I'm going to be doing, like work and da da da. So I called one of my friends that lived up at Yokoji, or at the time still it was Zen Mountain Center, and said, I'm kind of done. I'm just gonna let's just do it. So I got rid of everything I had. I sold my truck, and which I would have kept now, but at the time I was just like, I need to get rid of everything. So I did do that. I got rid of everything, and it's still funny to me like how hard it was to cancel stuff like car insurance and stuff. They were what? Well, you're gonna get a car, and I'm like, no, I'm going up into the mountains, and they're just kind of like, but you're gonna need a car, right? They're like, so all that stuff was an interesting thing, and just to get rid of everything, I gave my books away, and just I moved out. I knew what I needed. I'd been there for 6 months, so I didn't have a lot. I came up there with a little duffel bag and a sleeping bag, and I told him I wasn't leaving until whenever. I knew it took and I didn't have a lot of money at the time either, but I just did that and I stayed for, it was like a year before a stipend came in, and the stipend wasn't a lot, but at least I had something. But I was doing that, and through all that time, I ended up staying for, it was about 4.5 years, almost 5. And I was tensions attendant for, it was a few years, because once Shinko had gone to New Zealand, and Joe Kai, who's now the kind of, he was he hadn't even, he was still, he's kind of on and off. He'd leave, so he wasn't really in the position of, he was a priest, but he hadn't had transmission or anything at that time. I don't even think he was a Dharma holder yet. So it was more just us up there, working. And a lot of building of the temple, like the offices, I helped build a lot there, and just being with them all the time. And I would babysit the kids when they would go down the mountain. Um, and then what was the opportunity I had by being his Jisha was that whenever visiting teachers would come, I would I would be their Jisha. So uh, I met people who from the Diamond Sangha again, like, but from a different angle, and that was interesting to see what that was. I met some teachers from Kauai. The teacher from Kauai wanted me to come like with him back to Kauai, but who knows what happened if I would have done that. But it was interesting to do that every day. And it made it where like sessions and everything, after a while it just flowed into everything. Like I almost liked session because it meant less work sometimes, like physical chainsaws and things. So you learn how to just kind of settle into it, and it just kind of one day after the other after the other. We had the groups that would come up, so every night we'd have Chapman College that would come up for a week. We'd have different yoga retreats, so learning all the different aspects. And then I was the facilities kind of leader guy, so I had to dictate like the jobs of what people needed to do, and then you had to find out what was best for people who came up, so with their capabilities. And yeah, it was interesting in that ways, because I taught one well-to-do person how to use a broom, which I always thought was an interesting, because I thought they were kidding at first, because a broom to me is like a handle. It kind of, I don't know if they have directions for them, but they hadn't really used one. So to be able to be try to be understanding about it and not be like, that was some interesting stuff with that. And then we'd also have people going through a lot of transitional stuff. They would come up, like if they're going through a divorce or something, and all that being, so that was a big part of it too. It was, you had the normal practice, but the people who came up were a lot of where where that happens. And then just the normal day-to-day of personalities, having to deal with that. And that's where I remembered Bob, the first teacher, always said that the practice was kind of like what they call those, like rock tumblers, where you're kind of these crunchy rocks and you get through there and you tumble around until you're smooth, and then the real rock, the grain comes out. So I always thought of the practice in that way, especially when you're having a bad day sometimes. And it was interesting just for that whole aspect of it, and then also it'd be like during the middle of session having to go to Home Depot or something, uh, because once you are a part of the the kind of core group, it's a job. It's it's a zazen, but it's also the job, which I thought, and I still take with me. And then there was a time for a while when a lot of people left, and I also um, was a few weeks where there was only a few residents, and then two of them went to visit their family. So it was just me and Tension on this whole mountain, and half my job then was just trying to keep all the animals from trying to get into all these rooms. Because if there's no one in the Zendo, the raccoons and skunks and everybody else will definitely want to they'll take the spot. So that was it was interesting, because then I was kind of like, oh, I'm doing this old fashioned Zen. I'm sitting with Tension on the mountain. There's no one here, and our Dokusans were just kind of like bring them coffee, and it was just this really kind of fluid way of doing things, and I feel very I'm grateful I got to experience that stuff. That was something um, yeah. So I kind of did that. Uh, Started sitting there for a while, and then it was kind of like, what else do I want to do? Because I didn't really feel like ordaining or anything, because I felt like I was already doing it. That was a lot, and like I didn't want to have to put on. I felt like I was just putting on robes when I was already. I had the rakusu, and uh, and when the priest did come, I would show them like how we did our forms. So I knew the forms. I just never did the formal uh, the formal vows and that way. And I also and I still think about it, that when I came back to live there for my indefinite period of time, is that he asked me if what I wanted to do was this a career, and I laughed because I still don't think it's a career. Like as a career, like what is this? I mean, I guess if you write books and things, but we don't have the like, or at least in a I don't know what I'm trying to the it's not a job where you're gonna get like a paycheck every day and all this stuff. It's for me, and I still think about is what is this practice, is that there it was after I left, it was kind of like when I did decide to kind of wanted to try some new stuff, and that you realize I wasn't leaving anything. Like it wasn't a lot. It's like you still wake up and you have to work. You have to me, I get cranky if I don't sit zazen. So you start having to sit. You still do the things, uh, but without the structure. Because I felt sometimes I could hide in the structure, because you get used to you know what's going to happen every day. When you wake up, you pretty much know what's going to happen. And I felt that was kind of maybe stifling me a little in a way, or I felt stuck. So I left, and then fumbled around for a while. Now I met Gyoke because I was looking around for some places, and I was sitting with James Ford a few times, but my schedule didn't let me. I couldn't sit with them that much. So Gyoke had a morning zazen here at the Long Beach Buddhist Church, and he said, "Well, you can sit here at I think it was 6 a.m. He's like, you can't make an excuse not to sit at 6. So I started coming because I can make it. That was so that was a good part. Um, and yeah, and then now, yeah, we decided I should ordain, and it felt like now was it was a good time. And now I'm kind of realizing all the stuff about the ordination, how it kind of grows on you, and I'm learning new things about it all the time, what it means to me, and having to deal with the projections from people, uh, and what that means. Uh, so that's kind of where I'm at now. We have the practice here, and I really I appreciate it. Our group is slowly starting to show up. Because we are a non-denominational church, we can't really advertise what we do because we don't. I think there was some stuff from where I think it was Matsuoka Roshi wanted to kind of turn it more into a Zen center. They weren't. They don't want that. I don't think it's an issue to me. We can sit zazen. Call it like a meditation group. And then right now we're reading Dogen, the Bendawa. So that's kind of what we'll be working on tonight. And yeah, that's I didn't think I would be living here. This is like a totally different thing. This is all from COVID stuff. Like it's I every day I'm appreciative of it. It's and slowly because my fiance Haley, she feeds a lot of the cats out here, so we're slowly working on getting them fixed. And I'm meeting a lot of the neighbors who know the church and know Gyoke. So we're kind of tying it in because I don't think when they see me mowing the lawn and stuff, I don't think they thought I was a part of the church. They kept asking me how much I was charging for mowing the lawns, and I'm like, nah, it's free. But yeah, that's so the practice is like I've started, I've been doing it. Like I'm almost 50 now. I'll be 50 in October. So yeah, I don't know. In the practice, I have no idea what's going on. I'd like to go. I know Toshoji is kind of calling my name, so that'll be something. And then the rest of it is just I'd like to keep it going. I think what I wanted from my first teacher, Bob, was I wanted to keep some kind of form of a sitting group. I think I'm helping with having that be an option. And I always thought it'd be nice if I am connected enough with people that want to learn the forms that I could suggest they go to a place. And I think that's it's sometimes when I look around, I'm like, you're kind of doing it. And I didn't set out really for it, but I am grateful that we have this. I'm glad we have this practice, and it saved me a lot because I was a mess before I started sitting. But yeah, that's enough of my.
Thank you so much, Tosei, for sharing your story. There are part I never heard before, so it's wonderful. And I love how you treasured initial encounter with Bob, your teacher. That's something I think all of us here have as a common experience. He was the original teacher, yeah. So
Well, Sati,
yeah.
he actually died ended up with he died right before the shutdown.
Sorry, yeah.
Right before he
Okay.
passed away. So I got to see him before.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'd like to encourage, those of you who are here before Tosei has to go open the gate for the 7 o'clock. Our 7 o'clock practice here. How much time have you got, Tosei? A few minutes? You got it, like 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, let us know. Anybody has? Yeah. You're okay. Yeah. Also, son.
I have a question. You talked about that once you ordained, you were feeling people's projections. And I'm very curious about what that, what you mean by that and what they are.
Well, I think some of it is just what people think it's supposed to look like. So if they hear I'm like ordained as a Zen kind of novice, that I should know all the stuff and everything and walk around like in Chashu all the time, and everything is just kind of all the books and stuff instead of an actual just person. Um, I don't I don't know if that's really, but there is some of that. And I also just feel the responsibility, and some of that's probably me, that as soon as I put on even now shaving the head feels like I have it's putting I'm taking responsibility for the Dharma in this, in a sense of like what's going on. I'm not always great at it, in what my idea is, because it's always kind of changing. But I feel, especially when we put on the robes and we everything is that I'm you're you're putting on the tradition, and the living practice. So that's kind of, I don't know if I answered the question, but that's some of it is just kind of that people want to know. We have a guy on. I want to see if he's going to show up today. He was asking if we could walk through walls and things, and I'm like, no, we're not. We're not like kung fu masters or anything. I'll teach you how to sit zazen, and you'll get really bored, and you'll see how that works out. That's kind of how when people ask, I usually am the opposite, especially if they're asking for if we have special powers. I mean, maybe it's that we can sit for a long time, but I don't. But yeah, but that's and it's an ongoing thing for me. Like every time I put on my robes, I'm like, did I tie this knot right? And like I do it a lot, but I'm still always kind of like, is this good? Or um, so that's why I'm like the Samoy. I love this so much easier. But the robes serve their purpose too. Um, but yeah. So it's still like an ongoing thing, and then still even just learning, like the Toshoji thing, I think would help kind of in some ways, just to have to, because I don't normally run around and my chromo and stuff in the house. So I am always, when I am at the church, I'm kind of snagging on stuff sometimes. So I learn what the robes are teachers too, and they're not cheap. So I can't rip them. You got to be careful. Um, yeah. Still, if anybody has a good way of cleaning your tabis, that's something I'll take any advice on that.
There's a special brand in Japan. I'll make sure bring that next time. There's just one brand in Japan that just gets your dirt off your tabi. Oh,
Right.
sorry,
I said
next time, next trip, yes.
Yeah, I'm a pro at washing white baseball pants. I can get anything gleaming white.
so, that's a small problem. But yeah, that's one of those. I
I
try.
have a question for you, if I may. Is your fiance, does she practice as well?
She does not.
So how do
Yeah,
you
questions a lot.
find, sorry?
She actually asked me a lot of questions, which is good. She puts me on the like, why are you doing this? I'm like, no, but she's actually a social worker, for like I want to say like elder care. So she helps people who are yeah, just kind of like, yeah, like right now there's a lady she's having to deal with who's like 104. So there's a lot of that. So her job, I'm learning a lot from that about what she does. So she's more active. Not really. Yeah, she doesn't practice. She comes to the Sunday service sometimes, but as a formal practitioner, she I don't. I don't think I've in my whole life. I think I've dated one person who actually practiced. Most of the people I've met um, aren't normal like practitioners. As, but yeah, but she doesn't.
I just wondered what your experience was having a significant other that doesn't practice. You know, is it what's it like? You know, making that decision. Well, I'm going to go away to Japan and pursue some training, or you know, this is the things. These are the rituals, the steps that I have to go through. These are the things I have to do. I just wondered if it was difficult to do with a non-practicing partner.
Well, she's really kind of she wants me to have done it already like a year ago. She's like, get it over with, get it done. Stop messing around. You keep talking about it. Let's just do it. She helped me get my passport because I didn't have just through my life my birth certificate and stuff was all different. I had different names and stuff, so all that got. Um, so she helped me with that specifically to go and do this. She likes she likes what we're doing here at the house. She was says we do have the house, which is nice. She grew up like in kind of like an apartment her whole life, so this is a whole new experience of buying plants and I don't know, doing all the stuff that we don't would normally do. I don't think she wants to give that up, and I personally am okay not giving it. Um, yeah, and then with her job too, she helps sometimes when they have questions at the church because it is we're an older community, so she's able to she knows all the kind of resources and things if they do need something, which is I think a valuable part. Um, we've even talked about having her teach a class on like scams because there's a lot of phone scams now. So stuff like that. Just I think where she kind of helps. She might not practice in this kind of way, but she's still doing a lot. She's probably nicer than I am, to be honest, because I'm not always a nice person. But
Thank you. I realize it's getting close, and I know how I mean, the gate for the church is very close, but I know you probably have to get changed to make sure that everyone comes into the parking lot.
yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
take out the flash.
Thank you so much for your time, Tosei, right before your practice. And I hope, yeah, we get to have another chance.
And thank you for letting me have some of your time. And we're always here at Long Beach. You gotta, if you need a spot. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yes, this Saturday, Segak was sharing this. There's going to be a practice in person. But so Segak is joining us on Zoom from that group. So I guess we might have a chance right, to see your group, folks, probably.
I will have to take over.
Okay.
But I'll be there.
Oops.